what are your plans in regard to these concerns?
We know that Ispidalco was very well produced. It had a huge audience. It had huge impact. 67% of people who listened to that program said that it caused them to intend to use family planning.
Hello viewers, welcome to 101 interview with the President of Population Media Center, Mr. William Ryerson. We're going to interview him about Population Media Center and also a Somali drama that the Population Media Center Kenya branch has done, and it was aired on our station, 15 FM. First of all, let me take this opportunity to welcome Mr. William to our station, 15 FM. Mr. President, welcome to KBC and especially 15 FM.
Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. We appreciate giving us this time. And let's begin with an introduction about yourself, a brief about William Ryerson.
All right. Well, I'm trained in ecology and am focused, have focused my whole career on global sustainability, and started Population Media Center almost exactly 25 years ago, June of 1998, to address global sustainability issues through storytelling, creating characters who evolve into role models for the audience for adopting healthful behaviors that will lead towards sustainability.
Thank you. I would like to know what has inspired you to start this Population Media Center in 1998. What was the inspiration?
The work of Miguel Sabido, a telenovela producer in Mexico, showed that in fact entertainment programs with social and health content can be the top shows on the air and can lead to measurable behavior change for improving people's health and economic welfare. So he did a series of serialized dramas on Mexican television in which characters evolved into role models for things like adult education and use of family planning. And they led to dramatic changes in behavior in Mexico while being among the top shows on the air. And so based on that, I got involved here in Kenya and next door in Tanzania in similar programs on radio. And again, they led to dramatic changes in behavior. So for Kiswahili speakers, they may remember Ushikwapo Shikamana, produced by our country director Tom Kazungu in 1987 to 1989. And that program was accompanied by a 58% increase in contraceptive use in Kenya. It was evaluated independently by the University of Nairobi as being the most impactful program in the history of family planning in Kenya. Similarly, in Tanzania, we had a program that had huge effects, and all of this was before I started Population Media Center, but what I saw the effect that these programs had and the huge audiences they attracted. Ushikwapo Shikamana here with 40% of the population listening, Twendi Nawakati in Tanzania with 58% listening. I said, this is important. This is so cost effective at helping people improve their lives and never telling them what to do, just modeling behaviors and showing consequences. So then I started Population Media Center.
The goal of BMC is a sustainable planet. So I would like to know the most fundamental threat to global sustainability and how we can address it.
Climate change is just one sample or example, I should say, of the evidence that we are not living sustainably because we're pumping carbon dioxide and methane into the atmosphere at a rate that it cannot be absorbed, and it's leading to overheating of the planet. And certainly Kenya, among other countries, has been a victim of climate change already, and we're only at the beginning of what is likely to happen given how much carbon dioxide is in the atmosphere. Population growth is also a key factor in two regards. Even though most of the growth is occurring in countries with low per capita carbon dioxide emissions, everyone has a carbon footprint and everyone wants to increase their quality of life, which will mean increasing their carbon footprint unless there is a way found to decouple energy consumption from carbon dioxide, which so far we have not accomplished. So population growth is probably about 25% of climate change, and a particularly important part of it, as found by the UN Environment Program report on Extinction of Species issued 3 years ago, is that expanding human habitation and expanding human farming are the primary drivers of loss of biodiversity. And of course, it's the biodiversity, the wilderness areas, the rainforests of the planet that make the planet habitable, that absorb carbon dioxide, that provide a web of life that makes the planet a livable place as opposed to what it was at the very beginning before there was life on the planet. One could not survive for a minute if they visited planet Earth 3 billion years ago, but now it's a quite habitable place. But expanding human habitation and farming is driving to extinction many of the species that actually make the environment habitable. So we're on a very dangerous path, and to become sustainable, we need to promote smaller family norms through things like stopping child marriage, which is a violation of human rights, of the girls being put into marriages as children, and to allow women to space childbearing and to limit the number of children they have so that they achieve good health and economic welfare.
Exactly. There are a lot of activities on reducing the climate change. Year in, year out, there are conferences, summits, discussion about the effect of climate change, and it seems that there are no big changes on the effect of climate. So why are we not getting it right?
I think the problem has largely been that people, particularly government leaderships and the corporations that fund them, have not seen it as being in their self-interest to change their ways of making money. And so if you're running an oil company, you're making lots of money selling oil, you don't want to have people give up using your product. So we really need to make a lot more noise about that issue in particular in order to move towards sustainable energy production using renewables only. We must give up all fossil fuels because that is what is driving us towards an inhabitable planet.
Among the issues that BMC deals with is the population growth. The world population reached 8 billion last year, November. Is the world overpopulated? And if yes, what are the things that has led to this overpopulation?
Probably the best answer I can give you is that a renowned ecologist at Cornell University, David Pimentel, did a study of what number of humans is sustainable once we have stopped using non-renewable resources, because eventually we will be 100% living on renewable resources. And he said, what would be the number that could be sustained at the Western European lifestyle, which many people aspire to have? And the answer was 2 billion. As you said, we just passed 8 billion 6 months ago. In the half year since then, we've added the equivalent of the population of Kenya to the global population, and the global population is growing by the equivalent of the population of Nairobi every month. So the issue has to be dealt with in a way that doesn't violate human rights by giving people the information they need to help them understand the benefits of things like girls' education instead of child marriage, and giving women access to and information about family planning services and the opportunity to space childbearing for better maternal and child health. So what led to this rapid growth in the world's population was a success story. That is, the public health measures that were adopted around the time of World War II and vaccination programs that dramatically dropped infant and child mortality. So instead of having 80% of children dying before they reached adulthood, we're now down to less than 10% in every country and maybe 5% in a few countries. So most children who are born survive to adulthood now, and that change in infant and child mortality led to rapid growth in the world's population. So it was the result of a success story, but in fact now it's no longer adaptive to have 6 or 10 children. It's only adaptive to have 2 or fewer.
Anytime this issue of family planning came up, there is a perception with the African people that this is a Western idea, a Western way of eliminating the population of the Africans. So why is this perception, and how can we change this thinking?
Every country that's gone from developing status to developed status since World War II has started with family planning. And before that, Europe itself went through a demographic transition to small family norms. Then the Asian tigers, starting with Japan, South Korea, Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan, now Vietnam, Sri Lanka, Thailand, have promoted smaller family norms and have realized huge economic benefits. And as a result of couples having 2 children instead of 6, they're spending less of their income on food, housing, and clothing for the children, and they have money left over at the end of the month that they can save or they can use in buying elective products, such as manufactured products that stimulate the manufacturing sector in the economy. But the savings that they make in bank accounts leads to capital formation, and the capital in the capital marketplace allows businesses to borrow and expand, and that drives up demand for workers. That drives up wages. That creates a middle class. And the growing incomes allows governments to tax those incomes at a reasonable rate and yet have money to build schools and roads and other municipal services, and all of that increases economic productivity. So as this has happened in many countries, particularly in Asia and Latin America in recent years, the world has realized this demographic dividend has not been realized by Africa. It is certainly not an issue of controlling the number of Africans. In fact, many countries of the world have reached a plateau, but many people in countries like Nigeria are mired in poverty because they're still having 5 children. In Niger, they're having over 7 children per couple in a country that is running out of water. So, I mean, certainly large family norms are present, and honoring of large family norms has been the case since the arrival of humanity on the planet, because, as I was saying, before public health programs, most children died on the way to adulthood. So having many children was ensuring that some would survive to adulthood. But that's no longer the case. And now people are much better off economically if they have 2 children who are educated and employed than if they have 10 children who are living in poverty and unemployed.
What's the relationship between manageable family size and economic and health-wise?
Well, certainly, as I was saying, the demographic dividend, the economic growth that occurs as a result of smaller family size, has been a major driver of economic development around the world, and it's only just beginning to happen in Africa. So that's a key issue for Africa. Does it want to lead a lifestyle that is more middle class, that has people not mired in poverty, that has everyone having opportunity to be educated and to be employed? And health is also a key factor. So when a woman starts having children before she is physically mature, and we see this with child marriage in many countries where girls are put into marriages sometimes at 12, 13, 14 years old, and they're having babies before they're ready to physically, not to mention emotionally and financially. What happens often is obstructed labor, and that, if it goes on long enough, can kill enough tissue that a woman ends up incontinent. This problem of obstetric fistula is something that is very commonly found in places like northern Nigeria, where child marriage is so common. So use of contraception is one of the keys to improving maternal health. And also because spacing of childbearing helps children survive, it's been a key to reducing infant and child mortality. So the health effects of family planning are well known, but for people who don't know both the safety and the effectiveness of contraceptive methods, they may think that they shouldn't use them for various reasons having to do with rumors about safety or effectiveness, or they may be fatalistic and think that it's up to God how many children they have rather than being up to themselves. So giving people the agency to make those decisions themselves on an educated basis, understanding what's in their own health and economic welfare interest is critically important.
And BMC uses entertainment education program to help people understand what we have been discussing, having a manageable family size, the issues of population growth, health, and girl child education. And this organization that you have founded like 25 years ago, it has reached the farthest part of this country, and that is the northeastern region, where it's predominantly occupied by the Somali communities.
Yes.
And they have benefited one of the radio dramas produced by the Population Media Center. Unfortunately, the drama ran for 1 year and it has stopped. The audience, the feedback that we are getting, or we get from the audience, is that they are asking whether and when they will see the drama back on their radio waves.
Yeah.
So, what are your plans in regard to these concerns?
We know that Ispidalco was very well produced. It had a huge audience. It had huge impact. 67% of people who listened to that program said that it caused them to intend to use family planning. So a very successful program, and it is sad that it was so short. Our goal is to renew funding for it and to continue programming for the Somali community throughout this country. And indeed, the reason for this visit to Nairobi is to talk to the donor community that enabled us to do that program, to seek renewed support to make it possible.
Apart from the 4 major topics the drama addresses, the FGM, family planning, nutrition, and SGBV, there are other issues that are affecting the people in the northeastern region. Are there plans to increase the topics of discussion of the drama, or it will, if it came back, it will only mainly about the 4 major issues that it has addressed?
We have dealt with dozens of issues in other countries in the categories of environment, human rights, and public health. And we know there are dozens of issues in the Somali community to be addressed. So our goal is to address multiple issues over time with program after program. Specifically what the issues will be for the next program, I do not know. This is partly a discussion with the government of what are the priorities, and partly a discussion with the donor community about what are their priorities. But certainly the goal is to address issues of concern to the people in the Somali community.
Although, as you have said, it's mainly depend on funding from donors, how soon can we expect the drama back on the radio?
The answer, I'm afraid, is that's a cliffhanger. So we have to see how the donors respond. We have not had all the meetings that we need to have for this trip yet, but at the end of the trip, ask me that question again. But in the meantime, I'm optimistic that we'll find support. And one of the reasons I'm optimistic is over and over again, including this program you were talking about, we've had huge audiences and huge effects, and the audience often writes in saying, please continue the program. So my hope is that the donor community will respond well.
Your parting shots, your words to our listeners, especially the audience of the drama, and by extension the Somali community. What is your word of advice or your parting shot?
I think it is really useful for Population Media Center Kenya to hear from people about what their concerns are, and to have people send letters or text messages about what they'd like to see addressed, whether it's the issues we've talked about or other issues that are of concern to them, because our goal is to serve the community with stories that illustrate healthful behaviors related to each of the issues of concern to the public. So if malaria is a concern, please let us know that. If violence against women and girls is a concern, please let us know that. We really need input from the community as to what they want to see addressed.